Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. First thing, as always, I hope everyone's well. The second thing I want to say, goodbye, Alexander Isak, the bellend. Yes, it's a transfer deadline day special. And would it really be a Newcastle United deadline day if I didn't wear my tune top? Looks alright, doesn't it? You know what? It's nicer in person, I think. So much nicer. But I'm not here to talk about a tune top or just sit and chat shit to you guys. I'm here to talk about goodbye, good riddance to Alexander Isak, the bellend. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to tell you why it's positive and why we can move forward as a club. Yoane Wissa's medical is scheduled for today, so we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to have a quick look at what to expect from Yoane Wissa, Nick Woltemade, and then tomorrow's video, once the deadline day is done and dusted, we're going to look at a tactical fit on our whole squad. So yes, we're going to look at how Nick Woltemade and Yoane Wissa can play together, if they will play together. So as always, guys, to support this channel, please drop a like button, hit the share button, and don't forget to subscribe and be part of the Mango Fruit Basket. Do you know what's funny? On deadline day, the past 3 years, it's been a ghost town for Newcastle United. Literally no news involving Newcastle United. All we're used to seeing is tumbleweed just going across St. James's Park. But this deadline day is different. Now we're the talk of the topic. Alexander Isak to Liverpool, Yoane Wissa to Newcastle. It's all going on in Newcastle United. One more midfielder is what I want to see. But let's talk about Alexander Isak to Liverpool, because I'm going to be honest, guys, my position has always remained the same. Sell him, and I've always said we would accept 130 million. I know the media are trying to spin it to say it's 125, but from what I know, it's 130. Personally, I think that's a good deal. I'm trying to look at the positives about Alexander Isak leaving Newcastle United. So if we take a step back and look at it all, right, he was signed for 63 million, sold for 130 million, under 3 years. That is textbook asset flipping. So we've doubled our asset value there. What I do want to say about Alexander Isak, whether you like admitting it or not, he has helped the club progress. 2 Champions League qualifications and a cup. He's been an excellent player for us, but he's not bigger than the club. Selling Alexander Isak does not devalue Newcastle United as a football club. Now, what it also brings, it provides massive headroom against PSR. For the past 3 years in the transfer window, we've been going into a gunfight with a knife, but now we're flipping Alexander Isak for double what we paid. We've given ourselves wiggle room to move forward as a club. And do you know what? I don't care what anyone says. Yes, it would be lovely to have him rotting in the reserves, but we're bigger than that. I know selling Alexander Isak might attract criticism from some fans, from other club fans, but it's the right decision. We cannot have Alexander Isak, who's valued at over 100 million, on our books, not playing for us. Because I can guarantee you, to ensure he gets paid, Alexander Isak will turn up to training and do the bare minimum. Now, if we said to him, we don't want you around training, stay at home, we've still got to pay him, because that's our decision. He's not refusing to come in and train. So I've got no doubt if he didn't leave this window, he would do the absolute bare minimum to ensure he would get paid. It would be lovely to have him just sitting there rotting in the reserves, being miserable, but we are far better off selling him, bringing in the money and reinvesting in the club, whether that be players, training structure, facilities. That 130 million is massive for us. Now, I've always been in the position that he wouldn't go for 150 million. I always said it would be 130 million, but we also negotiated Liverpool paying these bonuses. So if you add that on top of the price, it's coming in at around 130 million, 135 million. So if we look back at last season, Alexander Isak scored 23 Premier League goals, second only behind Mohamed Salah. That is elite level output, but that doesn't justify keeping a player that wants out, because I can guarantee you the squad dynamics would not be good. Newcastle United pride themselves on squad dynamics and harmony, so we've got to keep that togetherness. And in fact, keeping Alexander Isak for any longer reduces his price tag. One, because he's got less on his contract, and then you're also running the risk of dipping form, which is a massive possibility due to him not wanting to be there. So he's not going to put the effort in. Then you also run the risk of injury. Imagine if we did reintegrate him into the squad to sell him next summer, but then he breaks his leg. Like, anything can happen. So I've also seen people say, why sell him now on the last day of the transfer window? One, because we waited until we had a replacement. Now we've got Nick Woltemade. And 2, you can only sell him if somebody bids for him. Liverpool made 110 million bid. We rightly rejected that, but they didn't make a second bid until now. So you can only sell a player if you've got an offer. Now, we could have approached Liverpool and said, look, come and buy him, but Liverpool could have said no. The reason they would say no is because in their stance, they're thinking Newcastle might actually reduce it even further on the last day of the deadline. Negotiating these deals are is all a game of posturing. Newcastle United overvaluing him, Liverpool undervaluing him, and then you meet somewhere in between. This constantly happens in football negotiations. So look, I'm going to be honest, I'm happy he's gone. Did not want him around the club for the rest of the season, or at least even half the season. And to be honest, I just want to say one last thing on Alexander Isak, because in truth, he is a bellend. The way he's went about this has been the ultimate disrespect. I do not want somebody with that attitude, somebody as egotistical as Alexander Isak around the football club. He's supposed to set an example, be a role model for all the young players coming through, and he's done the exact opposite. He's made himself look like a petulant child. Him and his agent can do one. Do you know what I will say? He had Newcastle faithful at his feet. He was a hero to us. He could do no wrong, but he's just thrown that all away. He would have got a hero's welcome every time he come back to St. James's Park if he had just conducted himself professionally. That's all he had to do. Remain professional, because the deal probably would have happened. But we need to guarantee this doesn't happen again. So our next sporting director has to make sure this doesn't happen again. Every single player we sign, we should include in their contracts a statement suggesting if they try and force a move or down tools or refuse to play, then contract payments can be suspended and bonuses will not be paid. It's different if they come up and say, look, Liverpool are in for us. Would you mind if I spoke to them? That's different. I'd be like, yeah, no problem. If you're open to sell them, if they meet your valuation, I'd be like, yeah, go and speak to them. But it's different when he's refusing to play and just being ultimately disrespectful to the whole football club. A football club that has put him on this platform to even get to Liverpool. You know what? I'm sick of talking about him. Good riddance, goodbye, and shut the door on your way out. Because what I want to do is move forward as a club. Now, I don't see this sale of Alexander Isak is a negative. What I want to do is reframe that narrative from selling your star players to building sustainability. So now we've doubled our market value on Alexander Isak. We can reinvest in key roles. Does look like Yoane Wissa is going to be the man. So once that's announced, tomorrow I will be doing a tactical video on Yoane Wissa and Nick Woltemade. But I really want us to learn from this lesson and move forward as a football club. Bringing the CEO is ASAP. Bringing the sporting director ASAP. Let's begin a future plan in the transfer market. But this Alexander Isak sale has given us PSR headroom expansion. Now we can reinvest in the squad. Now we can reinvest in the infrastructure, training facilities, analytics, academy upgrades. But what I would also like to see us do in the future is multi-club model, because there's so many advantages that outweigh the negative. Talent development being one, loan placements. You can also structure finances better, but you can also bring in bigger sponsors, which ultimately helps with PSR. So I think instead of looking at this Alexander Isak sale is a negative, let's look at the positives, because Newcastle United certainly have a bright future. Look guys, in an ideal world, everything's plain and sailing, everything's rosy, everything's great. We go into this transfer window with the sporting director, with the CEO, but just things don't work out like that. Not everything is going to be linear. Our 3 years or 4 years under the Saudi ownership has been absolutely remarkable. There was always going to be a few hiccups along the way. This window has been kind of a hiccup, but in my opinion, we've dealt with this window exceptionally. I want to give Eddie Howe a lot of credit, because he has been diligent, professional, just an exceptional character throughout this window. And in a perfect world, we have a sporting director that's already planned for this situation. But football and life isn't perfect. When you get a hiccup, it's how you bounce back. Now, the positives about selling Alexander Isak is in January, for example, if we do need some reinforcements, the money's there to do so. Now, personally, now that we've got Nick Woltemade and Yoane Wissa, I think we should be going back to what we used to do, signing these under-the-radar talents to come in and we can develop into future stars, because that does a couple of things. One, if they excel at your club, that's a massive benefit, because you bought them for a low price, and if they do well, their price is just going to increase. So if you did want to flip them for a profit, you've got that option. But if you wanted to keep them as an asset, you've also got that option. So I just want to talk about these two transfers, because I found it funny, because at the start of the window this year, I tweeted out that Newcastle United should be looking at players like Bafode Diakite, and then guess what? Bournemouth signed him, and guess what? He's been absolutely excellent the first opening 3 games of the Premier League season. Then I also posted we should already be planning for next summer's window. Trippier likely to go. Matt Targett's already gone. We're going to need strength in depth. We're going to need strength in depth at fullback position. Now, ideally, signing somebody that can play right back and left back like Tino would be a massive benefit. So I recommended Alex Jimenez. And guess what? Bournemouth have just signed him. Do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think I've been working for Bournemouth? I'll let you decide. But the point of this is, these are the types of signings I want to see us making in the future. Players that are going under the radar, high upside talents, are hardworking and willing to learn. These are the types of players that won't force a move like Alexander Isak. So I actually think there's a lesson to be learned from this window, even though I personally think we've had a decent window. Once we get a sporting director in and a CEO in, that's when we can really plan for every single window. Now, with Alexander Isak leaving, it looks like we've actually brought in Yoane Wissa. So it's a fee worth of 55 million. Brentford have accepted the proposal from Newcastle United and Wissa is on his way for a medical later today. Isak's gone, Wissa and Woltemade are in. I actually think Eddie Howe will be happy about that because let's look at our window down on paper, right? Arrivals, Anthony Elanga. We needed a right winger, so we've strengthened that area. Goalkeeper, Aaron Ramsdale. We needed a younger goalkeeper. Although be it he's on loan, we've strengthened that area. We've signed two young players. Very big positive because they do look decent. We needed a right centre-back. Malik Chow's come in. We needed more quality and depth in midfield. Jacob Ramsey's come in. And we needed at least two centre-forwards. Nick Woltemade and Yoane Wissa. My preference is to bring in another midfielder. But let's look at the departures in comparison to what we've brought in. So we brought in Lloyd Kelly on a free. Sold him for 17 million. And then bought Malik Chow. That's an upgrade. We sold Sean Longstaff with 1 year left on his contract for 100% profit. Brought in Jacob Ramsey, that's an upgrade. Now I want to put these as a duo because when you look at it as a duo, it's an upgrade. If you're replacing Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak with Nick Woltemade and Yoane Wissa as a duo comparison, it's an upgrade. And then we sold Martin Dubravka and brought in Aaron Ramsdale. Now the beauty about Aaron Ramsdale, it's a loan deal. We've got an option to buy him at the end. So we're not necessarily tied into an obligation. So whether you like it or not, this is a strong window. We've upgraded on players that we needed to upgrade on, but we've also strengthened areas we needed to strengthen. If we just bring in another midfielder, a creative midfielder, like a number 10 would be beautiful, but we also need a ball winning midfielder like Joe Linton, in my opinion. That would go from a very good window to an excellent window. We've quietly done good business this window. And just think, we've done that without a sporting director and a CEO. Imagine what we can do when we're actually planned for a window. And on top of that, all of our targets went elsewhere. So the fact that we were always positive that there was always somebody out there is a blessing. So when you take a step back and put aside all the noise surrounding Alexander Isak, it actually is a good window. Just look at it on paper. That is a good window. Now, 1 or 2 more additions, and it's an excellent window in my opinion. So we do welcome Yoane Wissa to St. James's Park. So I want to go over a little bit, touch a little bit on Yoane Wissa and look a little bit of what's coming up tomorrow, because let's look at these statistics first of all in the Premier League. During the 2021-22 season, he played 30 games, only started 12. He had 7 goals, provided 1 assist. During the 2022-23 season, he played 38 games, started 16, 7 goals again, but 3 assists. During the 2023-24 season, he started 29 games, scored 12 goals, provided 3 assists. And then last season, during the 2024-25 season, he started 34 games out of 35. Availability is always the best ability, scoring 19 non-penalty goals, providing 4 assists. Now, when you look at these goals, there's actually a nice variety as well. 25 with his right foot, 12 with his left foot, 8 with his head. And I do know a lot of Geordies are happy about this signing. Why wouldn't you be? Somebody that's Premier League proven. As you can see from his statistics, when you consider his goals in comparison to his starts, he's actually got a very good record. Now, when we move on to his profile, I just want to quickly touch upon it because these are the things I like about Yoane Wissa. He's flexible across the front line, so he offers that tactical flexibility. He's dynamic, versatile forward who game blends explosiveness, positional flexibility, but also clinical finishing. So in simplistic terms, what's he going to provide? Pace, rapid acceleration, which makes him a threat in behind and in one-on-one duels, progressive carriers. Now, he's a confident dribbler in open spaces, but he's not so confident or comfortable in tight spaces. That's why we need somebody like Nick Woltemade. Now, finishing, in my opinion, is probably his best attribute. He's sharp in front of goal, often arriving in the right place at the right time. He excels at converting chances with minimal touches, and he does that by sharp movements and quick reactions. So you will see him scoring volleys, rebounds, near post finishes, one-time finishes. He does his best work in the penalty area, in my opinion. Now, his positional awareness, he's most effective occupying the left-hand channel, which is exactly what Nick Woltemade likes to do. So I'm going to be talking about who needs to give way tomorrow. Now, we all know he's a good presser off the ball as well. He's a hard worker off the ball, contributing to Brentford's aggressive pressing and defensive shape. Now, one thing I will say, Yoane Wissa is not a natural creator or a natural playmaker. He's not going to create many opportunities for you. This is why he created a good partnership with somebody like Brian Mbeumo, because Brian Mbeumo is an excellent creator. So that might actually give you a little bit of an indication of what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, the good and the bad. But I've actually already started what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and we are going to look at exactly exactly what Yoane Wissa likes to do on a football pitch. The amount of times he receives a ball, drops deep, runs in behind, overlaps teammates, underlaps teammates, makes support runs, gets on the end of crosses. And do you know what? I've already started it, but I'm not going to let you read it now. So look, just to summarize the video, do I think Yoane Wissa is worth 55 million with 1 year left on his contract? Perhaps 2 if Brentford extended the extra year. No, I don't. But look, he's here now, so we may as well embrace it. We've brought in the money for Alexander Isak. Now, people are saying we've already spent all our money, which is absolute nonsense, because even before we sold Alexander Isak, we were putting down 8 million bids for Hugo Ekitike, so we already had money in the kitty to spend before the sale of Alexander Isak. But look, if we don't bring anybody else in, we can look at our position in January, and if a deal is there to be done, it's a good opportunity. We can bring in somebody just to give us that little bit of push towards the end of the season. But look, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Nick Woltemade, Malik Chow, Jacob Ramsey, Aaron Ramsdale, Yoane Wissa, and the 2 young lads all brought in this summer. The rat, the bell end is gone. So I want to hear your thoughts. Are you happy with our window? Do you think this squad is better than last season's? Now, I do also think it's a transitional season. So just because we won a cup last season doesn't mean we've got a better squad, we'll have to win a cup this season. Football's not like that. You're going to go through spells where you don't qualify for Champions League. We're going to have seasons where we don't finish in the top 4 or 5. We're going to have seasons where we don't reach a final. And that's okay, because not every season is going to be a successful one. But football is all about the ambition for fans. And I actually think Newcastle United are showing good ambition. But I want to hear your thoughts. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. But obviously, be nice about it. And thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, away the lads.